Well, good morning, and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's start right off with viewer comments brought to you by Steuben Senior Services. Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. First up, Frank, I would like to know how much the LA peaceful protests are going to cost the taxpayer. Big wave from Wyoming. Yes, we're counting it. That's a wave all the way from Wyoming. It's going to cost a fortune. It's now spread, of course, throughout the country. We're going to get to the specifics of that in a little bit, where the protests have grown, how much it's going to cost overall. It's going to be remarkable. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Hey, Mark. Good to hear from you. Sorry to start the day on a sad note, but 2 shootings in Elmira leave 1 person dead. I saw the reporting on that, and it is a sad way to start the program, but definitely worth mentioning. That all happened, I believe, on Monday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Monday or Tuesday. Okay, we have a lot to get to this morning. We're going to be talking about the riots that are going to cost taxpayers a fortune. We're also going to talk about Trump's Army parade. That's the word I'm looking for, coming up on Saturday. Of course, the media is presenting it as he is doing this for his birthday, when it's actually for the birthday of the Army, if you will. And then we'll talk a little bit about the protests that are involved in that. Yes, protests everywhere. Here's a question to maybe start off the program. When do people lose the interest in the protest? I'm not saying necessarily the anti-ICE rioting, because there's a different kind of feeling when it comes to rioting than an actual protest, right? The rioting, you've got the adrenaline, you've got people taking advantage of the situation and looting and those type of things. But an actual protest, because I talk about it here on Market Street, where it's 1, 2, 3 times a week sometimes. Then on the weekend, here we are in the summer, where let's face it, in our area we don't have a lot of beautiful weekends. So when do people start saying, maybe I'm not going to give up a weekend for a protest? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. And maybe it doesn't die down or calm down. But boy, there is a lot. Yes, this another viewer, writing in. Thank you for the reminder. I meant to start the program with this as well. Brian Wilson, the legendary Brian Wilson, has passed away at the age of 82. Of course, with the Beach Boys, and just revolutionized music in so many ways. People are sending their condolences from all over the world to his family, with some very big names. Bob Dylan, I saw, Elton John, all talking about how much he influenced their music. So yes, thank you for that. Thank you for the reminder. I don't have any way to segue into these first couple of stories. A few are updates. A few I think are just important to know, and then we'll get into the protests happening in LA and elsewhere. First of all, I don't know if this is huge breaking news, but nonetheless, it's worth reporting. Out of Long Island, an elementary school nurse was reassigned because she, doesn't matter. The nurse allegedly wore a jacket with the letters ICE on the back, because at the elementary school it was Superhero Day. Well, apparently that outraged some parents and school officials. The employee at Northwest Elementary School in Amityville, identified as a nurse, allegedly wore the jacket on school grounds on Wednesday, prompting the district to launch an investigation into the allegations. First of all, the way they're talking about this ICE jacket makes it sound like she was I know it sounds a lot worse than a jacket. So for Superhero Day, he believed, that it actually doesn't say, that ICE, they're superheroes. They're protecting us. And that prompted outrage. The Amityville Union Free School District is aware of an allegation involving a district staff member who affixed an acronym to their clothing that was perceived by some members of the school community as offensive or inappropriate in the educational setting. Again, does that seem like an appropriate response for someone wearing an ICE jacket? I think the media is doing this a little bit, and I know this came up on The View, which we may talk about a little bit later, but the kind of villainizing ICE agents and the military who are on the ground in LA, you're not helping your argument. It's very much, akin to like people talk about in the past when, Vietnam service members would come back and people would, spit on them and boo them at the airports, things like that. These are people doing their jobs, ICE, the military on the ground. So when the media turns them into the villain, turns them into the bad guy, it doesn't end up looking good for the media. But we'll continue. Upon learning of the situation, the staff members were immediately reassigned to a non-school setting pending a full review. School officials added that its top priority is to ensure that our schools remain safe, inclusive, and welcoming spaces for all students and families. The district did not reveal what acronym was on the nurses' clothing, but the president of the Amityville Teachers Association confirmed that it spelled out ICE. Wolf confirmed that the employee was a nurse at Northwest Elementary School and that the incident occurred on the same day as a moving up ceremony for its kindergartners, but declined to provide the employee's name. However, Wolf condemned the nurse's alleged behavior and said it has no place within the school. Why would you come into a setting of learning to make any type of political stance like that? Is it? I guess it is a political stance. It doesn't seem it to me, except for you're calling a law enforcement agency superheroes. But to that union representative, it's, quote, just completely inappropriate. Superhero Day, if you're wondering, is where students come to class dressed as their favorite superheroes. I think it kind of went without saying. One parent picking up their student from school said, "That's utterly disgusting. This is the world we're living in now. People are already fearful, as it is. There's no right in that." Okie doke. There you are. An LA school nurse immediately reassigned after allegedly wearing an ICE jacket during Superhero Day. The way they're referencing ICE is quite, well, I don't know. I think they're doing themselves a disservice. But anyway, hey, the annual congressional baseball game. Remember quite a few years back when Steve Scalise was shot and others were shot at the congressional baseball practice. That's when many people learned about this baseball game for the first time. But that's when you started to see this kind of normalizing of left-wing violence. And we had that great piece last week talking about left-wing violence. And how it has been normalized or downplayed by the media. That was one example. We know that person who did the shooting was far left, had posted some horrible things online. That was downplayed and almost ignored by the media. But that's not why I bring up this story, because yesterday was a congressional baseball game, and for the fifth straight year, Republicans clobbered the Democrats. It was a 13-2 win in Nationals Park, and that's the fifth straight year Republicans have defeated their political rivals on the diamond. There must be a couple ringers in there, because I know for a while Republicans struggled, but Representative Greg Stube from Florida, who was seriously injured in a ladder fall just 2 years ago, pitched 5 innings for the GOP, striking out 7 Democrats. He quipped after the game, "I'm going to take an ice bath tomorrow." Now, the MVP award went to Representative August Pfluger. from Texas, who made a spectacular diving catch to end the first inning after Democrats loaded the bases. It actually went viral on social media. He said, proud to have been selected MVP for this year's congressional baseball game. Couldn't have asked for a better support team here in D.C. Another huge win for Republicans. The game was far more subdued than last year's edition, which saw anti-Israel protesters disrupt the national anthem and climate change activists rush the field. Again, 15 years ago, not too many people were keeping up to date on the congressional baseball game. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi greeted her colleagues in the Democratic dugout at one point during the game and received cheers from the blue team's fans. More than 30,000 tickets, were sold for the game, which raised $2.8 million for dozens of charities. Steve Scalise saying, Team GOP takes the win. Proud to take the field with my Republican colleagues tonight and bring home the win. We raised $2.8 million for local charities. We're not tired of winning. Now, back in 2017, Scalise was shot by a left-wing extremist, during a GOP team practice in Alexandria, Virginia, a day before that year's edition of the game. Republicans hold an overall edge over Democrats in the series by 5 games. So in its history, Republicans have won 47 times, Democrats 42. How about that for a start? Ooh, I see a lot of messages, and I see a lot of waves that I missed there. We've got a couple updates. We are going to get to the protests. Don't worry. Also, I forgot to mention, coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, I'm excited about this, kind of a yearly tradition. Watkins Glen Mayor Laurie DeNardo is going to be our guest. We're going to talk about the upcoming Waterfront Festival on Saturday, and that's got the Cardboard Boat Regatta, which we'll be broadcasting. And I'll keep you updated on the times and what days that'll be broadcast right here on Big Fox. I'll be hosting the show, as has been the case in the past few years. So there we go. I don't think that's a bad start to the program. A lot of different types of stories, and we've got a few more different kinds of stories that are updates before we get to the ICE protests. So stay with us. We're just getting warmed up. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. What a beautiful view of the Gafford District. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program where we read viewer comments. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Steve here. Well, good morning, Steve. Trump should cut off all federal funding for California, New York, Illinois, and Massachusetts if they want to harbor and fight against the removal of criminal illegal aliens. Then the people should get what they voted for. If the people that cause the adverse effects that they want to have happen finally get to have consequences. Excuse me, I said that strange. Maybe the people that also experience the trickle-down will finally see what the truth is that they have voted for. Doubt they will learn, but there has to be a beginning to the end. Very good point. Thank you for that. Thanks, Steve. Mark writes in, the $5 million Trump Visa card has quite the waiting list. Oh, I haven't heard an update on that in a while. I know it was said to be a success, or that there was quite a few people vying for it, but I have not heard an update. So thank you for that, Mark. Speaking of updates, former ABC News veteran correspondent Terry Moran. We've been bringing you that saga of him showing and proving yet again the media and the legacy media, specifically like ABC, and their bias, right? By posting about Stephen Miller. Well, after being suspended, they said, well, your contract's up. We're not going to renew. Essentially, you're fired. Well, that same day, yesterday, he launched his independent journalism career. Do you take someone at their word when they say they're independent and an independent journalist the same day or the day after they got fired for proving a far-left bias? I'm starting to think the term independent journalist may be a loose definition by Mr. Moran. The 65-year-old journalist resurfaced his Substack account. I'm not familiar with what that is, I'll be 100% honest, but that seems to be where the kind of disgraced or the debunked, or I don't know what other word, derogatory term I could use for these quote-unquote journalists that lose their job, like the Jim Acostas, the Chuck Todds, the Terry Morans. He said he would get back to the important work. Quote, for almost 28 years, I was a reporter and anchor for ABC News. As you may have heard, I'm not there anymore. I'm here with you on Substack, he said on a video. This amazing space, and I can't wait to get at it. Get into the important work that we all have to do in this time of such trouble for our country. Again, just highlighting the bias. Now you can say, well, you know, he has these beliefs. Okay, that means that those beliefs for the 28 years he was at ABC have been forming his news broadcasts, his interviews, whatever the case may be. Now, you may say Terry who, as one viewer did a few days ago, because that's what Trump said when he was being interviewed by Terry Moran, which was a very biased interview in my opinion. He said, the only reason I even picked this interview is because I don't even know who you are. But such trouble for our country, that is a common refrain from the media, that you are supposed to accept that this time right now is a bad time for the country. It is a bad time for democracy. They push that as fact, that there is no wiggle room. But I'll continue. Moran revealed he would be publishing his own reporting and interviews on his site. He teased it would take some time to get the account up and running because, quote, he had to get some stuff sorted out. I would say I wouldn't wait too long. In media, you don't want to be, you want to stay relevant. And I'm not sure, there's not an argument that Moran was never really that relevant. So you don't want to take too much time off. Now, we don't have to go through his now deleted post. We talked all about it. But there you are. He's going to be an independent journalist because there's an alleged threat to our country. Independent. All right, enough on that. The U.S. Oh, this is complete. Again, not a lot of segues this morning. But this is an important breaking story, much more important than what I just reported. I had my papers out of order, and I apologize. The United States is drawing down the presence of staffers who are not deemed essential to operations in the Middle East and their loved ones due to the potential for regional unrest, according to the State Department and the military. The State Department said it has ordered the departure of all non-essential personnel from the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad based on its latest review and a commitment to, quote, keeping Americans safe both at home and abroad. The embassy already has been on limited staffing, and the order will not affect a large number of personnel. The department, however, also is authorizing the departure of non-essential personnel and family members from Bahrain and Kuwait. That gives them the option of leaving those countries at government expense and with government assistance. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, quote, has authorized the voluntary departure of military dependents from locations across the region, U.S. Central Command said in a statement. The command is monitoring the developing tensions in the Middle East. Now, the president, and we may talk about this a little bit later on, but he was visiting the Kennedy Center. Him and Melania went to an event at the Kennedy Center. He said as they were going in to the Kennedy Center, they are being moved out because it could be a dangerous place, and we'll see what happens. We've given notice to move out, and we'll see what happens. Now, tensions in the region have been rising in recent days as talks between the U.S. and Iran over its rapidly advancing nuclear program appear to have hit an impasse. The talks seek to limit Iran's nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of some of the crushing economic sanctions that the U.S. has imposed on the Islamic Republic. Iran insists its nuclear program is peaceful. The next round of talks, the 6th, had been tentatively scheduled for this weekend in Oman. But now it looks increasingly unlikely that these talks will happen. So that is a breaking story that came out late last night. Okay. Yes, we're going to talk about the ICE protests. Oh, I have quite a few Albany updates. Something Phil Palmisano weighed in on some very important issues of what's happening in Albany, topics that we've been discussing on this program. We're going to get to that a little bit later on. We do have some just kind of generic, if you will, that's probably not the right term, updates on the Trump administration. But the main focus is going to be the protests. But we started all week with those, so I thought we would just kick off with some other stories. So I do have one more story we'll get to when we come back, and then into the protests. Your thoughts as the protests and the riots spread? Actually, New York City seems to be, even the New York Post saying so, seems to be doing a pretty good job of tapping down the rioting. We'll tell you what happened last night there. Also in LA, where under the quote-unquote leadership of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, the protests turning into rioting, and doesn't seem as if they're able to handle the rioting. So, of course, we know now the National Guard's there, and the Marines will be there, I think, today, maybe tomorrow. But really seemed to be doing a poor job right from the beginning. This got out of hand because of, again, the lack of leadership of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. But we'll talk about that because now the media is trying, I'm not exaggerating here, they are trying to paint Gavin Newsom as, I guess, the hero that Democrats need right now. That his reaction to this is exactly the refreshing tone that Democrats need to win in the future. I think that's, the media's really liked Gavin Newsom from the beginning. So I think this is a way to try to quash the talk of his horrible handling of the wildfires, of the horrible handling of these riots right from day one. We'll talk about it when we come back. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. One last update before we get into the LA riots. Former Democratic National Committee Vice Chair David Hogg will not run for re-election after the party voted to oust him from that role. This is a weird scenario. It's a little wonky, but he was the vice chair for a while. He started talking about how Democrats, he wanted to spend $20 million for Democrats to primary incumbent Democrats to get out some of the old faces of the Democrat Party and get more kind of radicalized younger Democrats in there. That was met with some backlash from the older Democrats, such as James Carville. Well, wouldn't you know, there was some type of, I don't know if it's a Robert's Rules of Order, I don't know what kind of parliamentary issue there was. Well, wouldn't you know it, they had made a mistake. And so he had to be ousted, but don't worry, you can run again. We have to do this again officially. It all kind of reeked of some insider dealings, which, let's face it, the Democrat Party is known to do. Just ask anybody that supported Bernie Sanders. And they might not want to talk about it. I'm still shocked that they're a Democrat to this day. But with superdelegates, the fix was in that Bernie never had a chance to be the presidential nominee, no matter how big the crowds were that he was drawing in, how many votes he got. Hillary Clinton was going to get it no matter what. So the Democrat Party never trusts their own voters. That happened twice to Bernie Sanders. They don't trust the American voter. And we see that with the inflammatory rhetoric that they use to describe the majority of voters that voted for Trump. But also, they don't trust their own party voters, and they've proven that time and time again with the primaries. And in this case, they don't trust their inside party voters either, the people in charge of the party. So they oust David Hogg. They said, but you can run for re-election And he said, I came into this role to play a positive role in creating the change our party needs. It is clear that there is a fundamental disagreement about the role of vice chair, and it's okay to have disagreements. What isn't okay is allowing this to remain our focus when there is so much more we need to be focused on. Ultimately, I've decided to not run in this upcoming election so the party can focus on what really matters. Now, his decision to quit the DNC comes on the same day members voted to remove him and Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta from their national party posts, citing procedural issues related to their February election. Interesting how they found out there was a procedural issue after David Hogg started suggesting that he wanted to challenge incumbent Democrats. Hogg would have been able to vie for the post again, but opted not to amid intense criticism from some Democrats over his plans to spend $20 million to take down long-serving Democrat House lawmakers in primaries. DNC Chairman Ken Martin recently said on a call, I mentioned this on the program, I don't think you intended this, but you essentially destroyed any chance I have to show the leadership that I need to. Again, this is the DNC Chairman, Ken Martin. This was a call with Hogg and other Democrats that were leaked to Politico. So it's really frustrating. No one knows who the heck I am, right? Martin said, on the verge of tears. This is the guy that heads the DNC. He's a DNC chairman. So he makes a call to Hogg because Hogg was kind of making a name for himself with all this. And he said, no one even knows who I am. You really messed up my chances of being a leader here and fighting the tears, holding back tears. Now, Hogg defended his efforts to fund primary challenges against incumbent Democrats, saying after seeing a serious lack of vision from Democrat leaders, too many of them asleep at the wheel, and Democrats dying in office that have helped to hand Republicans an expanded majority, it became clear that leaders we deserve had to start primarying incumbents and directly challenging the culture of seniority politics that brought our party to this place to help get our party into fighting shape again. I need to do this work with leaders we deserve. That's an organization. And it's going to remain my number one mission to build the strongest party possible. He went on to thank everyone who has supported him during his short-lived tenure at the DNC. I have nothing but admiration and respect for my fellow officers. Even though we have disagreements, we are all here to build the strongest party possible. Hogg argued that the Democrat Party mustn't be defined by not being the less bad of two options in voters' eyes. The change can only come through a full embrace of democracy, not only to defeat Republicans, but to elect new Democrats to show voters how we are changing and regaining their trust by listening to them, doing all we can to give them the best representation possible. Leaders we deserve exist to do this, just that. The reason I bring this up and spend so much time on it, I think it's interesting because it seems like David Hogg and some in the Democrat Party are kind of having that rude awakening. And I like the way it's put there, seniority politics, where, it's this person's turn, or this is the best person for the job because they've been there forever. We had that with, okay, now it's John McCain's turn, now it's Romney's turn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see if the Democrat Party kind of goes the direction of David Hogg, just on pure party politics, not on actually where they stand and where they believe, but on who they elect individually. It'll be interesting to go that direction the same way they have been going with the James Carville kind of direction. All right, I see some comments coming in. Yes, it is time to talk about the protests. As immigration raids continue, they have spread. The protests, the riots spread from coast to coast. Now, the curfew continued, or will continue, they're saying, in LA. And it's going to continue for an undetermined length of time. Bass saying if you drive through downtown LA, the graffiti is everywhere and has caused significant damage. It can't be. I thought this was all peaceful. Now remember, this is the narrative is that none of this would have happened if Trump didn't escalate the protests into riots. Now we know that's not the case because we already saw the destruction. We already saw the violence in the streets before the National Guard was sent in. A prime example of trying to rewrite history. Now, NBC News said they have counted at least 25 rallies and demonstrations coast to coast since Monday. Some involved only a few dozen people, while others attracted thousands. The protest took place as federal immigration raids continued nationwide on Tuesday, including a targeted enforcement operation in L.A., according to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as well as a raid at a meat processing facility in Omaha, Nebraska. ICE posted a photo on X showing a person wearing military fatigues alongside federal agents, one with DEA emblazoned on its vest, standing near a handcuffed person, and a military Humvee painted in camouflage parked next to them. The arrest happened in Los Angeles. Anyway, we'll talk about this when we come back. I know I'm running a little late. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by our good friends at Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson Studio on Market Street in Corning. And let's go to the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program, where we read viewer comments. Steuben Senior Services, empowering seniors to age at home. Here we go. Comment from the first viewer here. Frankly, I think Josh Shapiro would be a better choice for the Democrat Party's pick to run for president. He has more backbone than Newsom. Yeah, I would think he's a better candidate as well. But I think really right now the Democratic Party, but also the media, are just looking for anybody, right? They just want anybody they think can beat J.D. Vance, beat MAGA in general. And they're not going to criticize any of them. Newsom just happens to be at the forefront right now because of the riots. So they have articles like this from CNN. Quote, Newsom in California confront Trump with a potential blueprint for Democrats. Yes. All right. Comment from a different viewer. Oh, from Ken. Hey, Ken. But going back, yes, I think Ben Shapiro, at least on paper to me, seems like a better candidate if I were a Democrat. Not because of their political beliefs, but I'm just saying Newsom having these riots and the horrible handling of the wildfires as compared to Josh Shapiro, who's been pretty consistent. So, yes, I think you raise a good point. Ken writes in, the Democrats' presidential candidate, Gavin Newsom, had two messages ready to send. Number one, Trump caused the riots by federalizing the California Guard. Number two, Trump caused the riots by not helping California by federalizing the California Guard. You're right, Ken. This was an example. Going back to what I was saying, no matter what Newsom does or did, he was going to be portrayed as in the right. He was going to be portrayed as in the right on this, and that Trump was in the wrong. So you're exactly right. Newsom already had his narrative, and the media already had their narrative. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more in depth. I see a lot more comments coming in. Thank you. We'll get to those after the next segment. Anti-ICE protests erupt across 19 states, according to the New York Post. Thousands have stormed the streets in 35 cities across 19 states, both in solidarity with the unrest in Los Angeles and to protest a wave of mass detentions by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That's interesting. So if you go to a protest, let's say they have one locally, I don't know, wherever, and you go, are you there because you are showing solidarity to the protests happening in LA, the riots happening in LA, or are you going to protest ICE detentions? Can you go for both, or do you have to pick and choose, pick one? While no other cities have matched the scale of the volatile demonstrations in Los Angeles, where 700 Marines and 4,000 National Guard troops have been deployed, clashes with police intensified Tuesday during the latest round of protests, according to local reports. Again, mostly peaceful protests was the narrative. My goodness, somebody said something, because we got a lot of comments coming in. About 6 agitators were cuffed in Atlanta after police ordered a curfew to control a rowdy crowd, which set off fireworks and hurled rocks at officers. Boy, the fireworks is definitely a more common trend than in the past, isn't it? A demonstration in Chicago turned violent when thousands gathered outside the Chicago Police Department headquarters, accusing cops of helping ICE with crowd control during raids in the Windy City. That is something that the department denies. Some members of the crowd vandalized patrol cars, and others faced off with cops as a motorist plowed through the mob of demonstrators after ignoring police orders to stop. In Seattle, a few dozen. We're not going to go through each town and each city and etc. But I know that this Saturday, in many areas, and probably even here locally, though I haven't heard specifically, there's going to be the anti-Trump protest. So you're going to have a convergence of anti-Trump protests, anti-ICE protests, in solidarity with the LA riot protests. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of. You're going to have to keep a notebook, a diary. But they are spreading. I don't know if there's been any locally. But there were more ICE busts. The Trump administration on Wednesday paraded a rogues gallery, if you will, of criminal migrants that are being backed by violent anti-ICE rioters in LA, including child molesters, murderers, and drug dealers. One of the worst illegal immigrant offenders, Emiliano Guadagno Galvez, was busted during Saturday's unrest and charged with attempted murder for allegedly hurling a Molotov cocktail at LA County Sheriff's deputies. Again, at the mostly peaceful protest. Originally, it was peaceful protest, then it was mostly peaceful, then it was isolated to certain areas. They're so predictable in the media, aren't they? And the politicians all using the same talking points, the media, Democrats working in harmony. Gardino Galvez has already been deported from the U.S. once and arrested twice last year alone. But he was on the loose because California's sanctuary laws meant ICE detention orders were ignored by local cops. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. The DHS said, quote, "These are the types of criminal, illegal aliens that rioters are fighting to protect. The Los Angeles rioters will not stop us or slow us down." At least 330 illegal immigrants have been arrested in LA so far, according to in these recent raids. In addition to Guadagno Galvez, ICE highlighted 9 other criminals, including killers and child molesters, whom agents had picked up this week alone, in spite of the protests that have raged around downtown every day. Among the arrests was Gerlando Antonio Peloso, a Mexican national with prior convictions for homicide and burglary. I'm not going to go through each of these. That's just going to get a little tedious. But showing who the protesters are defending, who the protesters are standing strong with. This is very reminiscent of, Senator Van Hollen, standing with that alleged human trafficker, alleged MS-13 gang member, alleged wife abuser. Standing with them, whether it's Harvard, standing with the anti-Semitic protesters. These protesters standing with this list, this rogues gallery, as they put it, of criminal migrants, some including child molesters, murderers, and drug dealers. So there we go. There's a quick update. We've got a lot more about who have been arrested. Specifically, we're going to talk about the New York City New York City crackdown on the riots before it got out of hand and turned into LA. We also have quite a few New York State updates. Interestingly enough, the name Elise Stefanik being thrown around for potential gubernatorial candidate. People saying, is she going to run? Isn't she going to run? Well, she has an op-ed out that came out yesterday talking about Governor Hochul and her silence on the assisted suicide bill that passed. It's at her desk. Whether or not she'll sign it is yet to be known. But as the headline reads, and we'll get to it later on in the program, Kathy Hochul's gutless silence on assisted suicide is a betrayal. That's Representative Elise Stefanik. So we'll learn more about maybe her belief on that, our thoughts on whether or not she's going to run for governor. We're going to read your comments when we come back. My goodness, a lot of comments, a lot of waves. Keep them coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And let's go to the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program, where we read viewer comments. Ken writes in, listening to the legacy media and Democrats on the LA riots, it makes me think of a slight twist on Mark Twain's 3 types of liars. 1, liars. 2, Democrat liars. 3, legacy media. Yeah, the way they twist themselves into a pretzel to try to downplay these riots, try to blame Trump, and then try to prop up Gavin Newsom, and to a lesser extent, prop up Karen Bass, because she's still a Democrat at the end of the day, but doesn't have the potential presidential future. Comment from a different viewer. Where am I here? Or here. There we go. Why aren't Democrats celebrating the return of Kilmar Garcia? Thought that was a great victory. Yeah, now Van Hollen did say that he has no regrets with his stance defending Mr. Garcia. I think there are others in the Democrat Party that realize this was not what you wanted to hitch your wagon to, so they are easing off, staying a little quiet on the issue. And that started, I'm not going to say early on, but after the second or third trip that Democrats were taking to El Salvador, I think it was Hakeem Jeffries that said, guys, enough. This is not a winning issue for us. That was according to sources. Okay, comment from a different viewer. Mark writes in, it seems to me these riots in 19 states is the start of a Democratic-pushed revolution. So with saying that, it's the Democrats' way of attacking Trump. Well, there are a lot of protests, and I've been talking about this on the program just because we happen to see them at our location on Market Street. And I'm not here on the weekend, but I know on the weekend, almost every Saturday or at least once a month, there's a big protest. We know sometimes 1, 2. I remember Easter week, the week before Easter, I think it was. Maybe it was. Yeah, I think it was before Easter. There was 3 protests in 2 days. I don't know when the fun starts to wear off. And then you hope, of course, it doesn't lead to, when the fun wearing off, they go to the rioting and get that adrenaline rush that we're seeing in LA, where it fans the flames for days, where the mob mentality, and better term than adrenaline rush, the mob mentality, where people are gaining by looting, destroying. Even Karen Bass complaining about the graffiti and the cost of that graffiti. But comment from a different viewer. Has any Republican said that they are going to run for governor of New York State? Well, great question. And no one has officially declared as of this moment. Well, I shouldn't say this moment. As of when I did show prep this morning. But as far as I know, no one has announced, not even kind of a rogue candidate, an unknown candidate. The names being thrown around, one, Mike Lawler. He's a congressman. He was kind of the early favorite. But then when Elise Stefanik couldn't be the UN ambassador for political reasons, not meaning that she was turned down, but just that she had to stay in the House for that vote for Trump. So she stood strong with her party and did a very honorable thing and said, okay, I'll stay in the House. But she is thinking of running for governor. According to polls, she would be almost tied with Hochul right now before she even declares. So I think that's really the favorite now, clear favorite. And then there's Bruce Blakeman, I think Nassau County executive. His name's being thrown around as well. But Donald Trump endorsing Blakeman for another term as executive and as county executive, and endorsing Lawler for Congress, which would be next November that he would be running, signaling that he wants Elise Stefanik to run. So, yes, there you go. How are we doing on time? Okay, let's see. We got some other comments coming in. We'll read those at the end of. Can you believe hour number 1 is already through and we haven't even scratched the surface? Now, in New York City, there have been protests. We're going to talk about that when we come back. Read your comments. I know I get rambling on when I read your comments, and I run out of time. One quick thing, reminder, as we had Elisa on, our friend Elisa, a couple of weeks ago now. Don't forget, tonight is the Miss Colonial Days pageant. It's at 6 p.m. right in Painted Post. We had the original call for contestants. So we wish Elisa all the best with the pageant that is happening today. So don't forget, if you would like to attend. Also, coming up In the next hour, we're going to be hearing from Watkins Glen Mayor Laurie DeNardo. She's going to tell us about the upcoming Waterfront Festival, which is this Saturday, and the Cardboard Boat Regatta, the famous or infamous, however you want to look at it, Cardboard Boat Regatta, which is always a blast. It's a lot of fun. That takes place at 2 o'clock on Saturday. We'll hear all about it in the next hour, but let's take that short break. Stay with us. Nearly wrapping up hour number 1 here on Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I have some comments coming in. We'll read those at the top of the hour. I have not forgot you. Just going to compile them and read them at the top of the hour. So college students and agitators, and even as the New York Post put it, Hampton's brat, are among the 86 that were arrested at the New York City anti-ICE protest. They shouldn't have trouble making bail. Cops cuffed 86 demonstrators at a rowdy anti-ICE rally in Lower Manhattan on Tuesday. Among them, the daughter of a Moroccan actor, a self-proclaimed poet from an upscale college, and a co-ed whose family owns a posh home in the Hamptons. This is very typical of, it happened with Occupy Wall Street, it happened with the Antifa, with various George Floyd protests, where a lot of times it's the kind of the rich, kind of maybe you could say spoiled kids in many instances that are taking part in this because they, again, I know this will not make sense to many of you out there. But to get those photos at a protest, to get those photos of you destroying something or spray painting something or throwing something at a police officer makes you the cool kid. If you can show that you're the most aggrieved, you're the most offended, you are, in that culture, the coolest kid. So you want to get those likes. You want to get those pats on the back. By posting that photo. So very often it's people that know they're not going to get in any real trouble. If they do get arrested, mommy and daddy will send the bail and you'll be fine and you're still going to get a great job because you come from rich families. Now, that's not every protester. I'm not suggesting that. We see a lot of the rioters. That's not the case. But a pretty large chunk of these protesters come from good backgrounds, moneyed families. Jessica Tisch, the NYPD commissioner, said, "My sense is the vast majority of the 2,500 people that were there to protest peacefully. There was a smaller group of a few hundred where we did have to make arrests. Some of them were looking for trouble." And that's to my point is what I was trying to say is the ones that get violent, because those are the ones that want to take the best selfies. It seems to be the ones that get violent very often are the ones that have the least to lose because, again, someone will bail them out. I'm not going to go through each individual, but among those busted was Vega Golette, a 19-year-old student at Sarah Lawrence College in Yonkers who described herself as a Moroccan-American writer, artist, and lover of junk. The teen, who is charged with attempted assault in the second degree and obstructing government administration, is the daughter of Sean Golette, an actor, screenwriter, and director whose credits include the films Requiem for a Dream and Pi. Golette had a group of friends show up to her court hearing on Wednesday in a show of support, some of whom draped themselves in the typical anti-Semitic protester garb. They say pro-Palestinian political movement. I would say anti-Israel movement. Okay, I'm not going to go through each person. I realize that we have a couple of those lists today, and I keep starting off, and I fall into that trap. I don't want to do that. Your comments when we come back. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2, mere moments away. Stay with us. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Having great discussions. We've got some comments coming up here in just a second. We are going to continue to discuss the riots. I'm probably going to put that aside a little bit later on. Number one, because we are looking forward to talking with Watkins Glen Mayor Laurie DeNardo. That's coming up in a little bit. Also, we do have quite a few New York updates that we just have to get to. So please, bear with me. Because we've got a lot to cover and a short time to get there. But let's go to viewer comments, brought to you by Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. Here we go. Patriots, said this is a first viewer, Patriots need to come down to Market Street Saturday and peacefully counter the demonstrators that are supposed to take place this weekend. Now, I have not heard of... specifically, I'm not saying there isn't. I haven't heard specifically of any protests in Corning. It would make sense, though, of course, because there seems to be a protest nearly every day. Not always huge, but protests almost every single day. And on Market Street, it does seem like a centralized location where people would go. But I also believe, and I could be wrong, but I also believe Saturday is the Pride event here on Market Street. So a combination of the Pride event with the anti-Trump protesters, so it could either be a very big crowd or kind of an interesting crowd, because one is Pride and one is the anti-Trump, and obviously they're not going to clash, but just two different events going on there, so I'm not really sure. But if I hear anything about protests, of course I'll pass them along to you. Comment from a different viewer: Trump is trying to expand historic Abraham Accords. His efforts deserve a Nobel Peace Prize, but he will get nothing. Yes, you're matter of fact about that, and I agree. He deserved one. Remember when Obama got his almost so early in his presidency that even he was sheepish about it, saying, I don't think I deserve this. But yeah, all that Trump did for the Middle East in his first term, and no, it's not even, no one even considers it in the realm of possibilities, unfortunately. So you're exactly right. Comment from a different viewer: I saw the show that they pointed out intersectionality with these protest groups using Palestinian flags, and you see Mexican flags. You don't see American flags. You see gay rights flags. So I guess it's the enemy of the enemy is my enemy, and my enemy... I knew I was going to screw it up. Let me try again. So I guess the enemy of the enemy is my enemy, and my enemy, who has a similar enemy, is my friend. I'm going to take your word for it. I didn't do the graph, but that sounds right. Thank you very much. And finally, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. 13-2. That's the best I have this morning. Yes, the Republicans defeating the Democrats in that congressional baseball game, 13-2. Pretty impressive. All right. Speaking of the second last comment about the various flags, Mexican flags have become Republican fodder, according to the New York Times, but protesters keep waving them. What does that have to do with Republican fodder? What a weird way of putting that, trying to, again, defend the use of the Mexican flags as the cities burn and the optics of that. So what they try to do is, that's all Republicans using that as propaganda. Because remember, that goes back to that Democrat source who said this is going to be perfect for Trump. That's going to be perfect propaganda for Trump. So what they're trying to do is downplay that and kind of mislead you. Images of Los Angeles protesters waving Mexican flags have gone viral in conservative circles this week. Many protesters say they are aware of the political reaction, but won't put their flags away. Why are so many protesters carrying Mexican flags at an American political protest? The sea of red, white, and green Mexican flags at an anti-deportation protest this week in Los Angeles has been seized upon by conservatives who argue that the demonstrations are inherently un-American, causing some protesters to consider leaving them at home. Photos of masked provocateurs waving Mexican flags atop burning taxis spread instantly across conservative social media this weekend. Republicans pointed to them as a prime example of why President Trump called the National Guard and how immigration has gone too far in California. To many Americans, including those on the left, it might seem a bad strategy to fight deportations of undocumented immigrants by waving the flag of another country. But protesters said this week that they see the Mexican flag as a symbol of defiance against Mr. Trump's immigration policies or of solidarity with other Mexican Americans. The flag has become so ubiquitous in recent decades that it is a part of the Southern California landscape, adorning pickup trucks and flapping from bridges. Few mass gatherings occur in the region without a Mexican flag or two, from weekend soccer matches to Dodgers championship games. This week, those who kept waving them said that it was important to honor their heritage and not acquiesce to Mr. Trump, even while they recognized the potential political cost. They said the flag to them was not un-American, that it represented their Chicano roots rather than a national allegiance. Okay. The issue is cut at the heart of what it means to be an American and whether freedom truly means being able to fly the banner of your choosing. No, that was not a quote from one of the protesters. Nope, not at all. That was the unbiased New York Times saying, quote, "The issue has cut at the heart of what it means to be an American, and whether freedom truly means being able to fly the banner of your choosing." Well, no one's saying they can't fly the banner. Isn't that the whole point? They can, but it's the optics. It's the, as Stephen Miller saying, Los Angeles is an occupied territory now. And we've seen, I don't know, I haven't gone through this whole article, but we've seen the burning of American flags, which is also another important symbol of these protests. But what this ends up doing, and it's really kind of laughable, they say, well, there's, the Mexican flag being flown. We've seen some Palestinian flags. Every once in a while, an American flag. But then trying to defend the usage of the flag and trying to downplay the symbolism of it, saying, in a nation of immigrants, Americans break out flags from other countries for cultural celebrations or holidays like Irish Americans on St. Patrick's Day or Italian Americans on Columbus Day. But in California, where Latinos are a plurality and Mexican Americans are the largest group among them, Mexican flags are flown throughout the year as a matter of cultural pride. Still, so saying, oh, it's no different than, the riots are no different than a St. Patty's Day. Well, there may be an argument there. A St. Patty's Day parade or a Columbus Day event. Which I'm surprised they bring up Columbus Day. Still, the optics at protests have caused California activists to ask themselves whether their flag choice was only providing more fodder for Mr. Trump as he pursued an immigration crackdown. On social media, some progressives suggested that protesters should replace their foreign flags with American ones, knowing that their rallies were being aired nationally each night. Well, the only time I've seen an American flag are the images of it being spit on or burned. Some on the left said that even more than optics, it's important to show that the American flag was not a patriotic symbol for the MAGA movement, that the flag belongs to all Americans, including those who oppose Mr. Trump's deportation push. So this is a 4 or 5 page piece talking about trying to convince you, never mind what the optics look like, never mind that it may look bad, that it's all about cultural heritage. It's not anything more than that. One protester, Maria Flores, 52 years old, a Mexican-born member of the United Food and Commercial Workers, who has been a U.S. citizen for more than 2 decades, waved the Mexican colors at a rally this week. Ms. Flores says she also owns an American flag, but worried about carrying it at an anti-Trump protest because the stars and stripes had become so associated with the MAGA movement. So that worried you? What, that people that support the same causes as you were going to attack you in some way? Is that what you're suggesting? Quote, right now, it could look bad to raise the American flag because of the Trump administration. If I put the U.S. flag outside my home, my neighbors would think I'm with Trump. Is that kind of a promo for Trump, by the way? That the American flag is associated with Trump, that you are a Trump supporter for being patriotic? That kind of speaks volumes about where the Democrat Party is today as compared to the Republican Party, doesn't it? Interesting. Huh. So, yes, that symbol, and CNN defending it yesterday, New York Times already defending it once before this piece, at least, saying don't read too much into it. No. Don't read too much into it. It's just showing their heritage. Oh, there you are. We've got to take a short break already. I could tell this program's going to breeze through. Oh, my goodness. We've got Laurie DeNardo, the mayor, coming up in just a little bit from Watkins, Glen. And I have one piece I have to get to on the LA riots. And then we are going to change it up real quick Just quickly to New York State issues, because I would be doing a disservice if we didn't get to these articles in just a little bit. Okay. In a tizzy here this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. Viewer comments brought to you by Steuben Senior Services Fund, empowering seniors to age at home. First of all, thank you to the viewer who sent in the information. Now, I have not heard about a specific anti-Trump protest on Saturday here in Corning, but they highlighted that they're calling it a no kings protest, meaning that Trump is a king and they're protesting against him. There's going to be a demonstration in Horseheads this Saturday. The rally is scheduled from 9 to 11 a.m. at Memorial Park. That's 2285 Grand Central Avenue in Horseheads. So thank you for sharing that information. Oh, hey, here's a nice comment. Good morning, Frank. Have a wonderful day. Well, good morning, and you have a wonderful day as well. How nice. Comment from another viewer. This is from Sergeant Dave. The one video of a woman arguing she just wanted to go to work and the male demonstrator laughing at her and saying, oh, you have to go to work? It shows you what kind of people we're talking about. And I'm sure he'll get his free money from the government. Immigration, more Trump derangement syndrome. That was such a frustrating video. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend, if you want to get frustrated, to watch it. That young man was so condescending, so smug. This poor woman saying, I have to work, I have kids. It should be noted, too. I think this should be noted because we're talking about, it was someone on the left that was stopping this woman from moving. And this is another example of why I said I think perhaps one of the dumbest moves you can make when it comes to a protest is blocking people's traffic because they want to get home, they want to get to dinner, they want to go to wherever they have to go, and you're not helping your cause. But I think this should be noted because the far left person that was stopping the car from moving was a white male. The person that wanted to go to work was a person of color. And she said, I have kids, I need to go to work. And he mocked her and ridiculed her because he probably comes from a background where he's either getting, like this person said, government money, most likely probably his parents sending him money, one of those type of things. And when someone asked him, a reporter said, how do you feel as a white person stopping a person of color from going to work? And he, I'm paraphrasing, but kind of mocked, oh, she's got to go to work, sarcastically. And then saying such things. This is how ignorant these protesters can be. What was it? Something about, she goes, I have to go work because I have kids. And they said, well, what about the kids that are being separated from their parents because of ICE? What does this woman have to do with that? I mean, the smug, arrogant attitudes, but also it's that ignorant arrogance that is so frustrating that we see from it. So yes, thank you for getting me all worked up over that again, Sergeant Dave, after watching that yesterday. So frustrating. Comment from a different viewer. The Mexican flag, as the intent is clearly obvious, being waved here in America is akin to the KKK waving the Confederate flag. Same goes for the waving of the Palestinian flag. It is a protest flag in this instance, and that's not the right term. It's kind of a symbol of the rioting. So it's weird, the coverage of the flags. But one thing I wanted to mention before we move on, we're going to take a break on this. After this one story, we're going to then talk a little bit more about the riots in LA, but also the No King's Day that person mentioned. But we have to talk about New York issues. So after this, taking a break, Mayor DeNardo, then New York issues, and then as much as we can squeeze in about LA. Here we go. The same media who told you in 2020 that the violent Black Lives Matter riots were fiery, but mostly peaceful, are at it again, pretending that your eyes are lying to you. No, they claim there are no rampaging throngs of marauders waving foreign flags and attacking the forces of order. No, mostly peaceful, isolated areas. And again, what did the one quote-unquote journalist, the media person say? It's just people having fun watching cars burn. Relax. Continuing. And the peaceful protests in Los Angeles are spontaneous. Nobody's organizing them. That's what the media wants you to believe, according to Mike Gonzalez. The Trump administration's immigration raids in the California city prompted mostly peaceful protests, blared the left-wing Guardian. Of course, these supposedly perfectly serene public gatherings then, quote, escalated when the president sent in the National Guard and then the U.S. Marines, end quote. That's a piece from the Guardian. So no, the scenes of mayhem and invasion that played on TV for days before the first National Guard unit arrived in the city of Los Angeles didn't prompt Trump to act. Don't believe your lying eyes. Never mind the riots that were happening before. It was Trump. It's like Guardian writer Chris Michael has no idea of the mockery that CNN correspondent Omar Jimenez has succumbed to since August of 2020 when he went on air in front of a building engulfed in flames and complete chaos behind him with a chyron that read mostly peaceful. One other thing that the left-wing media is not telling you is who is organizing the disorder and who is funding it. Ignoring this aspect leads the public to believe two things that aren't true. One, that the violence is spontaneous. Two, that it reflects true national discontent with the deportation raids. In fact, the opposite is true. A Polling Insights newsletter that the pollster Scott Rasmussen sends out reports that, quote, in the current standoff, 57% approve of the efforts by immigration officials to find and arrest illegal immigrants in Los Angeles. 52% approve of President Trump's decision to send in the National Guard. Other opinion surveys support that trend. So if the American people largely support the deportation raids by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, who is organizing the riots against them? We can see from the place cards and signs captured in photographs that one key group organizing the protests comes from what one can call the list of usual suspects, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, PSL. The PSL, a communist party, has been involved with BLM and pro-Hamas terrorist violence. The PSL has organizational ties with the Answer Coalition, which the Network Contagion Research Institute says has ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Answer was involved with organizing a rally in sympathy with the Los Angeles rioters on June 10th in Columbus. The PSL is an old-style communist party that will seize on any crisis to try to dismantle the United States. It says that, quote, the United States today is a dictatorship of the capitalist class. This reality will not change without a socialist revolution, end quote. It is funded indirectly by donations from Neville Roy Singham, an American millionaire with close ties to the CCP who lives in Shanghai. Elias Rodriguez, the terrorist who shot and killed the people at the Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. in late May, was a member of both the PSL and Answer. Another group involved in organizing the LA riots is the Service Employees International Union, a radical leftist American union with extensive overseas ties. It is a regular attendee of conferences and workshops held by various communist organizations. The Coalition of Humane Immigrant Rights, also an organizer, received $33 million in government grants in New York's 2023. $33 million for the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, LA. Then there are the charities helping the rioters, such as Mutual Aid Los Angeles Network, Operation Healthy Hearts, LA Poverty Department, and Mutual Aid Society Therapy. These riots are sure to expand in the days to come, which means that it's a good thing that some congressmen are looking to investigate who these groups are and why they are seeking to destabilize our streets. All right. We've got New York State updates. We'll read some of your comments, but first, Watkins Glen Mayor Laurie DeNardo coming up when we return. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam. Brought to you by Boss Security and Horsets. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program. Steuben County Office for the Aging, committed to maximizing quality of life, safety, and independence. And that's our friend, Mayor DeNardo. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Frank. Great to be here. It's a great week in Watkins Glen.
That's right. That can mean only one thing when you're on the program. Well, we've had you on other times, but this is the time of year. It's the Waterfront Festival and Cardboard Boat Regatta. Now, with recent weather, how's the planning going?
Good. We're looking for sunshine, though. We're a little worried about, looks like it's going to be about 70, and we're remaining optimistic, but
sure.
Yeah, the lake's pretty high, but I've been assured by the sheriff's office that we're good to go. The team is clearing out debris, etc., in the marina, but I think we'll be okay. The lake is balmy 52
Ooh,
degrees.
ooh. So keep that
Yeah,
in mind if you have a cardboard boat, if you're ready. How many? You have a lot of boats this year.
we do. We have currently 41 registered.
Wow.
Sometimes we get last minute boats, they pull in and we let them in. We did cut off registrations yesterday, but there's some last minute entries. We're good to go.
Imagine putting all that time and effort into building a boat, but then forgetting to register on time.
It happens.
I'm sure it
Yeah,
does. I'm sure it does.
but we're very flexible.
Now, how long? Because I think it's interesting. We here at Big Fox obviously talk about the Cardboard Boat Regatta itself so much, and we broadcast it on the air. But it's a whole festival. I think people sometimes overlook the waterfront festival itself.
Yeah, that's correct. And thank you to Big Fox, or one of our key sponsors. We couldn't do it without Big Fox and all the other sponsors. We just are really happy and appreciative of every sponsor for the event. But yeah, it's an all-day event. It's a family event. Starts at 11 down at Seneca Harbor Park, right at the south end of Seneca Lake, and we have lots of things going on for children and families, and quite a few vendors. More vendors. We had to cut them off this year,
Wow.
which is always a good thing. It's a mix between food and other vendors,
Yeah, arts
crafts,
and crafts
etc.
and things like that. That's the one thing I know. It's hard to pick where you're going to eat because there's so many options.
Yeah, good options. We have lots of good choices there.
So I don't need to know the exact year, but this has been going on for quite some time. Did anybody ever expect it to grow to this level?
I don't think we projected it to grow. This is our 32nd year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We had the one year during COVID that we didn't have the event
Sure.
for obvious reasons. But yeah, I don't know really when it started. I wasn't involved at that time what the projections were, but it's just a blast, and we've really focused it on family fun. And again, without Big Fox, we wouldn't be doing this event. It's just really, really fun, and appreciate all of your team, because we all have a good time together.
Oh, it's a blast. And that's why normally when I do an interview in the day, there's so much noise in the background. But not today. They're all up at Watkins. They're all scoping out exactly what they have to be prepared for. It feels like we plan for a year.
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
long?
absolutely.
How long do you start planning? When this is over, how long before you start looking at next year's?
We take a break. We do a kind of a summary wrap up very quickly to see if there's anything that we need to improve on or change. Then we take a break till the first of the year, and then we just start rolling again. Usually January, February, we start planning for, the next June.
Wow. So what is, during the Waterfront Festival, which is this Saturday, and the Cardboard Boat Regatta, what does that day look like for you?
It's a busy day. I start about 7 a.m. The biggest challenge in the morning is getting all the cars out of the parking lot. Yeah, and that sounds like an easy task, but it's not.
No.
We put out reminders. We advise the boaters. The boaters know this. The boaters from the marina. We've been doing this, as I said, 32 years. So, so I start out with just trying to get the cars out of the lot, because we close the streets down, the parallel streets. We have security that comes quite early, and then quickly we'll start the entries of the vendors. They're going to get set up, and right after that, usually the boats are flowing in. And so this year we changed it up a little bit. We are assigning spots for the boats, because what we had last year, because we had so many, and now again we have 10 more than last year, we were running out of room, because we just didn't have a lot of formality around where the boats could set up. So we're numbering the spaces to get people aligned better, so they have more space, but kind of more formulated where people
Organization a little bit, because what's crazy, people don't realize, if you've never been, some of these boats, but all combined, they take up a lot of room, and if you have that many vendors, you're running out of room to use.
Yeah, we have had boats that were over 25 feet long that had 10 or more individuals in them, and we have a lot of repeat boats that come in.
Sure.
We have some new boats. Last year it's kind of cool. A couple was here visiting the year before. They were from Michigan. They saw it on Big Fox,
Hey.
and they thought, "Well, that's kind of cool." So then last year they built a boat and they came, and it was really fun. It was fun to meet them. I just love the day. It's just a blast, and we have a great group of volunteers, and we also have what we call the Glen Gators. So it's a swim team, local school swim team. And we have the Boy Scouts and some other groups that come in, and we couldn't do it without them. They help us with recycling and, garbage pickup. They help get the boats out of the water. Once people get to the finish line, sometimes it's difficult for them to get that cardboard boat out of the water. So that can be a bit of a challenge.
You see them treading water, trying to get it out, and it just looks like it's just sinking to the bottom.
Yeah, and they're heavy.
Yeah.
Some of them are very heavy. And then we have, of course, the fire department and the local village police department and sheriff's department. Sheriff's department will be out in the water to ensure that all of the cardboard boat participants are safe. So we'll have jet skis out there in a small boat just to make sure, the water's cold.
Yeah.
So, we want to make sure that everybody is safe, of course.
And we talk about kind of the fun of looking at the boats before and walking around. What do you look for in a boat before they hit the water?
Well, I love to walk around. We have a set of judges that really enjoy that job.
Yeah.
I like talking to the people. I like hearing the stories. Some of the boats are just incredibly creative. I also like the kids. The kids get involved. We have one participant. This is her third year, and she told me third year's a charm because she sunk the last two right off the start line. So, just talking to the people and how much they enjoy it. It's a community event that's a staple here, and it's just a blast for everybody.
I'm always amazed when someone does sink right at the beginning and they just take what little bit they have left and keep the whole way swimming around. I always root for that person.
Me too. Yeah.
They must fall asleep pretty early that night. That seems like that seems like a lot of work. What do you think it is? Because you talk about walking around, just having conversations with people, and we've all done it, made friends from year to year. What do you think it is that makes this so special?
I think over the years, people have they put it on their calendars so they know it's coming.
Yeah.
They're always looking forward to it. They meet new friends, and we certainly all do that too. The committee is wonderful that way. I want them out there, talking to individuals. But as we've watched it grow, we're trying to, learn from that. And, we added more handicap parking, for example, this year. We have a great band who's playing a little earlier this year to keep people entertained once the race is done. But, yeah, I think people look forward to it because they can bring their kids and they can make a full day of it. And, parking can be a problem, but we've also added a huge parking lot to the east.
Oh, okay.
There's a charge for that. I'm not sure what they're charging. It's not a lot, but it will benefit the My Place local daycare.
Oh, wonderful.
So we've got better parking this year, and as I said, we added more handicap because that's important.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so special, I think, on top of everything else that we've talked about. It is so much about community. So you see that, yes, you're paying for parking is going to a great cause. And you see people, like I said, even when I say community, maybe a little outside of Watkins Glen, but meeting up and just getting to spend a good afternoon. And it's, you've got food and things like that, but it's a free event. You can just come and watch the cardboard.
Yep. Yeah, I'd like to get some demographics. I think that would be an interesting piece if, maybe, in the future we figure out a kiosk or something. I'd love to know how far reaching this is. And, we have a hard time, and I've talked to Joe, like, how many people are really there? People ask me this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really know.
No. You have no way of knowing. People are coming in and out, and it depends on the day, too, right? We've had those days where it was almost snowing. Let's be honest. It's not as big a crowd as, what was it, last year that was just gorgeous? Last year, the year before, it was like a perfect summer day.
Last year was beautiful. 3 years ago, it was so cold.
Yeah, that's what.
So windy. But we're trying to forget about that. But we still had fun.
Well, we always joke because you almost have to bring 3 outfits with you, right? When you attend, because you're not sure, because you always forget about just a little bit of wind coming off that water, you get cold. So we're never sure how to dress. But that's the fun of the Cardboard Boat Regatta and specifically the Waterfront Festival. Are you still looking for volunteers, or you're all set?
We're good. We did an outreach for all of our events in Watkins, and we've got a nice group. We've added some people this year.
good.
And as I said, we can't do it without them. So I think we're good right now. But if someone wants to participate in the future, we're always looking.
And what would you say to someone that hasn't attended, hasn't seen the Big Fox broadcast? What should they know if they're headed to the Waterfront Festival this Saturday?
I would say come early. As I said, parking is tough, but be patient to get to that parking area. We're going to have some good signage so people know where to go, and it's not a far walk.
No.
But yeah, I mean, come on down. We the more the merrier, and we're hoping for sun.
Right. We all are. Cross your fingers. Now we've got to talk about, have you put your mayor's hat on a little bit. How's everything going in Watkins Glen?
It's good.
Yeah.
We've had a busy spring. We really have been incredibly busy. Well, first getting our budget done,
Of
but
course.
then we just did a ribbon cutting and opened our all-inclusive ADA playground at Kloop Park, which is phenomenal for families, children with disabilities, and I'm really proud of it. It was our final DRI project, so that was the kind of the icing on the cake for 2018 when the village was awarded that $10 million. This was our final project, so incredibly proud of what we've done. And the summer is upon us. The race season is booming. The next 8 weekends or so, full up at the racetrack.
Yeah.
The traffic is starting, but you get used to it. It is what it is, right?
It must be shocking for people to come there the first time and you think a small Watkins Glen, and it feels like you're going through Manhattan sometimes, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah, people get frustrated, but I just said be patient. It's not that far.
And it's beautiful.
And people figure out how to get around too. But yeah, I mean we're looking forward to a good summer. We're a little slow just because of the rain. But,
Sure.
The parks are pretty flooded right now, but it'll dissipate and people will be complaining it's too hot. So
Exactly. We can never win. But I did see the ribbon cutting from the all-inclusive park, and that is amazing. I think obviously that's the wave of the future. We see other communities doing the same thing because it's a necessity, but it's also just nice for the community.
Yeah, people have been really excited about it. I think they're frustrated because it took a while, but everything does.
Wow.
And honestly, that project went faster than I could ever expect. We had that up and out, in about 6 months.
Oh,
and,
wow. Yeah.
It right now it's just the rain and the grass. We wanted
Right.
it's roped off a bit because we want that grass to be able to grow better, and but otherwise the kids are loving it. I go by every day, check it out.
Oh, great.
People are having a blast.
Any projects, anything up in the upcoming works that we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, nothing probably as exciting as that. We're working on funding for our phase 2 of our water project.
Oh, sure.
Which is infrastructure, and it's just really needed. We've got very, very old infrastructure, as many communities do, but we're working on that and always looking for other housing opportunities,
Of course.
as other communities are as well. There's a shortage, and we really are trying to work to increase housing. I get that complaint from especially the younger generations. They want to be here, but there's no place for them to live, or they can't afford what's available. So
Right.
really trying to work with the state on that as well.
And I know that that's become an initiative at the state level too, to find that housing. So that's a project that I'm sure we'll hear about in the future. So I know I'll be seeing you on Saturday. I can't wait. We'll catch up there, and then we'll have to have you back on the program before the next Waterfront Festival, okay?
All right, Frank.
All right.
Good to talk to you.
It's
and
good
I'll
to
see you
talk to you.
Saturday.
See you Saturday.
Yep.
Stay with us.
Okay.
We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you to Watkins Glen Mayor Laurie DeNardo for being our guest again. The Waterfront Festival this Saturday with the Cardboard Boat Regatta beginning at 2. Let's go to the Steuben Senior Services section of our program where we read viewer comments. First up, the first viewer here. Do the boaters have to have a boating license? No, I do not believe if you have a cardboard boat, you need a license, but I cannot. I have no law enforcement official. But you can check their website for all that you need to know on how to enter a boat. Comment from a different viewer. As American-born, proudly served in the Marines, the upside-down American flag should only be for distress, not for the reasons of disrespect. Well, first of all, of course, as always, thank you for your service. And I know that has become a common trend. As a matter of fact, Yosemite National Park is banning flags for that exact reason. And I saw a photo of a large American flag upside down, and that has been again, a common trend. Comment from a different viewer. The pushback against migrants' sexual assaults has turned violent in Ireland. Protests turned to riots. The world is dealing with the consequences of unchecked immigration. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. Now that we have a flag for everything, we have basically made them meaningless. Who wants to take the time to find the meaning of the newest flag? It's too bad that people don't seem to embrace the fact that Old Glory is the most inclusive flag of them all. Thank you very much. And finally, we used to have revolutions if the citizens of a country were oppressed. Now they go to other countries and riot. Thank you very much. We've got to talk about a couple of New York State issues quickly. Listen to this. The state ethics panel did an investigation. Total lobbying spending in New York State. This is not Washington. New York State. Total lobbying spending in New York State reached nearly $67 million from March to April, according to a preliminary data released Wednesday by the State Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government. That amount is up $1.3 million from January to February. So just from March to April, lobbying reaching $67 million in Albany. Now, originally it was reported that it was going to be yesterday, but in fact, Democrat governors, specifically Kathy Hochul and others, are going to testify before Congress today, Thursday. So we'll have updates on that on tomorrow's program. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Now, as I mentioned, Elise Stefanik, whose name is being thrown around as a potential governor, at least running for governor. She is not declared yet. She has a piece, an op-ed at the New York Post that says, Kathy Hochul's gutless silence on assisted suicide is a betrayal. Last month, Governor Hochul desperately attacked Republicans for our budget bill that aims to rein in wasteful and fraudulent federal spending. I believe, she said, that we should try to prevent our constituents from dying, she declared. Now, just 2 weeks later, New Yorkers have proof that those words from Hochul's lips are a cruel lie. My heart shatters for our state. Hochul's gutless silence on the so-called assisted suicide bill passed by Albany's far-left Democrats isn't just cowardice. It's a betrayal of every New Yorker clinging to hope, a dagger in the backs of the vulnerable she swore to protect. This is you can read the full piece for yourself. Obviously, an op-ed aimed towards the governor. Definitely raises some more questions of whether or not Stefanik will be announcing her gubernatorial run soon. But she finishes up by saying, Kathy Hochul, the clock is ticking. Veto this bill or you'll be remembered as the governor who truly let hope die. New Yorkers are watching, and we won't forget. Also on the New York front, and then we are going to get back to a couple of quick issues. In reference to that, what Elise Stefanik was discussing, that assisted suicide bill, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano released a statement, to Frankly Speaking, saying, I voted no on the medical aid in dying bill. And while I do think the sponsor of the bill, and those who voted for it have good intentions, this is simply not a bill I could support in good conscience, especially with concerns that were raised, including those by disability rights groups. The role of healthcare should be to preserve life. Instead of moving forward with assisted suicide, the state should be making better investments to increase the quality of health care, especially hospice and palliative care. I hope that when this bill comes across the governor's desk, she decides to veto it. Also, another statement from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. He joined with Assemblyman Robert Smullen and his Assembly Republican colleagues and community activists to call for the passage of the Fentanyl Fathers and Mothers Act, which he is a co-sponsor of. This would require the Department of Education to develop and implement a comprehensive fentanyl education, awareness, and recognition program for all schools in the state. The Assemblyman saying every death from fentanyl is one too many. Drug addiction and overdoses are not a political issue. They affect everyone, and we as legislators have a duty to protect the children of this state. Education on fentanyl and awareness of the problem is one of the most powerful tools we have at our disposal. That is why I'm proud to support this bill and urge my colleagues to move to pass it before the end of the session. So thank you to Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We got to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get back into our discussion on the LA riots and the upcoming protests on Saturday. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A comment from Mark during our Student Senior Services Fund section of our program. Mark writes, I've been to the Cardboard Boat Regatta a couple of times. It's a blast. Have a great day, Frank. Well, thank you, Mark. Have a great day yourself. And it is a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you to Mayor DeNardo for being on the program. Quickly, the federal judge has ruled that the anti-Israel activist Mohammed Khalil cannot be deported or detained by the Trump administration. The New Jersey federal judge, Michael Fabriers, issued a preliminary injunction prohibiting federal officials from booting the Columbia University rabble-rouser from the country, arguing that the administration's reasoning that Khalil's continued presence would pose a risk to foreign policy was not sufficient, according to the court documents. The judge also ordered that the legal U.S. resident be freed from custody as early as Friday, asserting that his continued detention is causing irreparable harm to his career, his family, and his constitutional right to free speech. Also, as an update, the ex-CIA analyst who admitted leaking the documents about Israel's strike on Iran got 37 months in prison. William Rahman had pleaded guilty in January to 2 counts of willful retention and transmission of classified information. So 37 months. Okay. According to the LA Times, Marines on the streets of LA bring peril and questions. As Trump administration officials vowed to crack down on rioters, looters, and thugs, state local officials decried the mobilization of 700 troops from the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, calling a clear violation of law and civility. As I mentioned, the media is trying to hype up Gavin Newsom as if he is being successful in all of this today. Newsom and California confront Trump with a potential blueprint for Democrats. Democrat politicians have spent the last few months talking about standing up to President Trump in his second term. California Governor Gavin Newsom is among the first faced with figuring out what standing up actually looks like. Well, I thought it was a 25-hour, 5-minute speech by Cory Booker. I thought that's what the resistance looked like. But allies and opponents agree how Newsom handled the protests, including Trump's calling in the National Guard and sending in active duty Marines, will reverberate far beyond California and long after this week. That's how Newsom is approaching what has become a fight on the streets and in the courts, only a few days after he was responding to a Trump administration effort to identify federal grants going to the state that can be canceled. Other Democrat governors have been calling Newsom, checking in, ticking through scenarios in their minds of how what's happening in California could play out at home for them. So Gavin Newsom, apparently, according to CNN, doing the job that could get him in the White House in the year 2028. Do you agree? We got to take our last break. We're wrapping up. Get those last second comments in. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And let's go to the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program where we read viewer comments. First off, Rick writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Rick. How ironic Trump is attending Les Miserables tonight. That was last night, but yes, I understand you updated throughout the evening. I bet the boo birds show up tonight for Trump. Boo, we'll see. Musk is backing away from his comments about Trump. Maybe we should call this a Mako, meaning Musk always chickens out. Bye-bye FEMA. Now federal tax can stay the same and state tax can go up. We all lose when the states have to pick up all these programs. Trump was just talking at the Kennedy Center about L.A. He said if he hadn't intervened, L.A. would be burning to the ground right now. Trumppuccino. No, that's not how you'd say that. Trumnocchio. Well, again, the rioting began well before the National Guard stepped in, but we'll continue. Update on the Kennedy Center. Boos and applause for the Trumps, and the lead actors boycotted tonight's performance. Rest in peace, Brian Wilson. Have a good one, Rick. Thanks, Rick. You have a good one as well. Comment from a different viewer. Greta Thunberg is the only kidnapped victim in history that the only demand was she leave. Thank you very much. And finally, Ken writes in, did you see that Hochul is going to have a news conference at 10 a.m. today? I think to talk about New York City sanctuary city rights. She commented that this is personal to her. It makes sense that she would be giving a press conference. She's going to want to make hay off of this because, remember, she's got to testify today in front of Congress about these sanctuary laws in New York. I don't see, could be wrong, I don't see too much positive coverage coming from the way she testifies because we know she's not the best on her feet. Off the cuff, so I maybe if something embarrassing happens, it gets some coverage, but I don't see her being a big star after it, but you can correct me if I'm wrong tomorrow morning. All right, I can't believe it. We're out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I did mention this earlier. Whoopi Goldberg on The View sent a warning to Mike Johnson after he said Gavin Newsom should be tarred and feathered. She suggested that is a racial statement. Quote, that's what they did to black people all through the United States. But on the other side of the coin, co-host Alyssa Farah Griffin warned her co-host against demonizing Immigration and Customs Enforcement in their discussion about the riots. I think Trump is not doing this just for optics. I think this is a test case so that he can dismantle some of our institutions, et cetera, et cetera. And they essentially said, don't take the bait, that it's not a winning side if you're demonizing ICE. But nationwide protests loom over Trump's upcoming military parade. We had someone report that there's going to be one in Horseheads. The Hill actually put together the major cities that have them. It looks like a rallying cry from the unbiased Hill. But Trump's military parade is going to feature a massive array of over 100 historic vehicles, including iconic Abrams tanks and P-51 Mustangs. That does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And thank you to Watkins, Glen Mayor, Laurie DeNardo for being our guest. We have many guests coming up in the next few days, and wrapping up on tomorrow's program, we're going to learn a little bit about Corning Community College and some of the programs they offer on tomorrow's show. So don't miss that. But I would recommend that you don't miss any weekday morning at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already. Have a great day, everyone.